so we are going live. Should be good. Okay. Oh, I brought up Patreon. I haven't even looked at it. Oh, God. See, Shannon changed his model at the hand tool school.
No.
Yeah, it's now like, in addition to being able to buy the semesters and things, you can now basically have a monthly membership option that kind of just gets you everything.
Oh, that's cool.
But he's kind of running the two systems concurrently. So if you don't like change, you don't have to change. But it seems like the apprenticeship system, the monthly thing, is the better way to go for him or for customers.
I can see how that would be better, reoccurring.
Yeah. All right. So we're live now. Where are the community posts?
Did I not post?
No.
It is quite possible I didn't post.
I don't
so
see
out
one.
of
Well,
it.
you know what? That's easier because that's just less confusion for me.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Hey.
We're getting started here.
We're both sick. I'm really sick. He's
I'm
on
getting
the
better.
way out sick.
Yeah, I am on the way out.
I won't be talking much today.
Mm-hmm.
It's
one of those days. Plus, it's also the day after Thanksgiving.
That kicked my butt.
Which is, Thanksgiving's a lot of work.
Yeah, I went to bed at 6 p.m. last night.
Yeah, that was early day for you. Even for me, I went to bed at like 10:30. Alrighty.
Lots of people in chat waiting for us.
Okay, good. All right. So, hey, it's Friday Live. I'm Mark.
And I'm Nicole.
We got some stuff to show you here. We got a couple of nice gifts from people.
Announcements.
Yeah, we got some announcements, some sales, and we have my good buddy Andy Klein here. He's going to show us a new product that he came up with in collaboration with Magswitch. Really good stuff. We'll be at the table saw showing you some of those details, and that's actually going to be one of the first things we're going to do today. But before that, we do have some announcements and thank yous.
Yeah.
So let's get the sale announcements out of the way first.
Well,
first of all.
First things first.
Yeah.
Today's Black Friday.
All day.
And I got so many people asking, are you going to do a Black Friday sale? So I talked them into it.
I was like, I don't think we should. I mean, we got
So the shaker table and the shaker sideboard were supposed to be 20% off this weekend, and they still will be. They're not right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to start the sale tomorrow officially, because today, if you use the code PERKYTURKEY, his idea, you can get 40% off one project.
Yeah, it's a good deal.
Tons of people are like, Rubo, here I come.
Yeah, the Rubo, the Queen Anne, High Boy, like the higher cost projects. This is the one you want to jump in on.
A lot of people talking about the rocker.
Rocker is a good one, yeah. So 40% off, head over there, Perky Turkey. And again, no pre-order projects, only completed or even the in-progress projects, which means the Morley table is included in this sale, as well as the workbench cabinet that is sitting under my workbench right now.
And in addition to this great instruction, I saw somebody was like, oh, and you're like, that low of a price for great instruction?
Oh yeah, some guy on Facebook was like,
the mad face.
Oh, those prices. And I was like, you're so excited that they're so low for this much educational content? Thank you.
Because you get the plans, you then get vendor discounts.
Templates, like template files, if they're applicable to the project, you get those as well. And of course, you get to ask questions. Which is one of the best things. And if you're not familiar with the Guild, think of the Guild more like an online version of a class that you might take in person. Don't think of it like an upgraded YouTube video. Yeah. It's a very different value proposition there.
You'll also be able to download your episodes, play them on your TV. There's a whole bunch of features to that.
Yeah, we don't restrict that yet.
Yeah.
There may be a day where we're going to have to pull back on downloads, but so far no. I don't see the need to do it. So we just want to thank a few people who helped us out with things. Do I have the Patreon thank yous? I'm so disorganized. I'll do that later.
Okay.
Let's just thank the people who sent us stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't know if you guys saw these. Not too long ago, maybe even last year, the Stanley Anniversary Limited Edition tape measures. Very old school in this little tin thing, very heavy. I want to
use this in my quilting room.
I want to throw it at small animals. So yeah, these are great. And I actually never bothered to pick one up. I know people were kind of scrambling for them at one point. But a gentleman, what is his name? Nick Clanky. We actually bought some chisels from Nick. And then later he sent us two of these guys. Chisel. Thank you, Nick. I really appreciate it. He is clankywoodshop.com. That's Klenke. Clanky Wood Shop, or Clank, I don't know. Don't ask me, I don't know how to pronounce my own name. So thank you, Nick, we really appreciate that.
That's really nice.
Another thank you goes out to Wayne Nicholson. He is KW Woodworks on Instagram, check him out. Wonderful coasters. Got his logo there, so if you see that logo, that's who we're talking about. He's got a couple of we've had a lot of logos over the years, haven't we?
He likes to change his mind.
Yeah, from the kissing the log one to, and I'm not going to tell you what other people say that looks like, but you could just use your imagination. And then of course this one where we went with the, let's go really on the nose. We're going to take a hand plane and a mouse, and we're going to combine them into one logo and call that the Wood Whisperer, which is now the last logo and our newest
nobody
logo.
uses mice. I'm like, I still use a mouse.
Everybody's doing a touch interface these days. Mice are outdated. Anyway, who uses hand planes either? I mean, seriously. So anyway, these are great. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. We always have the workbench here with our coffees, and we could use these coasters to protect my workbench. She likes to spill a lot. So.
Not really.
So thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
I'm looking at your workbench, and this is...
Yeah, it's a little messy. He sent me progress photos of this as he was making them and stuff, so I really appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
And I know usually the question comes in and like, wait, we can send you stuff? I'll put the address in the chat if you are interested.
Yep. We've got a P.O. Burks that you can send it to.
P.O. Burks.
All right, so before we get into questions, Q&A, Nicole is going to be collecting questions from the chat room. I'm probably going to have to read most of them because we're trying to not strain her voice any more than is necessary. We're going to run over to the table saw. You're going to hear some rustling. You might want to lower the sound on your speakers. What?
My Titebond giveaway.
Oh my God. Okay.
Titebond gave me 6 bundles of glue to give away. So if you head on over to woodwhisperer.com/giveaway,
That's a big Twinkie.
the giveaway runs until December 20th. Okay. So get some glue.
That's awesome. All right, so you might hear, again, I was mentioning before, lower your speakers. We're going to rustle some microphones.
I can't adjust it.
We're going to get Andy mic'd up.
Should I adjust it?
I would rather you didn't.
Okay.
Because then you got to make sure you get it back up to where it needs to
I'm
be.
not.
It's fine. It's fine. Let's just do it. Let's go to the table saw. Let's make the magic happen. Oh.
Should I give Andy mine?
We do need to switch mics or switch cameras. Look, it's Andy.
Hey!
He's just standing there all awkward like.
It's the only way I know how.
So this is going to probably be a little bit of a pain in the butt for you. But this is how you're going to get your...
No, that's fine.
You might even just tuck that in your pocket.
All right.
A pocket that wants to stay, preferably. Okay. And do I have enough room? Can you turn that?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Good.
We're so professional.
Fine.
I made Andy as awkward as possible with his microphone set up here. So as I mentioned before, this is Andy Klein. He is an inventor extraordinaire. So if you want to just give us a background on what the new products are, why you even made them, all that good stuff.
So I guess there's a different why for each one, but the 3 products are a new universal featherboard. This is the old version. This is the new version. A miter slot dial indicator that can be used anywhere on the table, and a vertical featherboard that gives you a downward force on a workpiece if it's thin and it's lifting up, or if you want a consistent depth on a non-through dado or something like that. Those are the 3 products. So I guess we can just kind of go through them.
Yeah, let's start with, I'm really excited about the double featherboard thing, because this is actually mine from my shop. So I have one of these and I've used it for years. What's the difference, and why is the new one so much better?
So really 2 differences. The first one is the force of the magnet over the miter slot. So on the old one, the magnet wasn't very wide. So if you end up positioned right over the miter slot, it's kind of weak and you don't get that much featherboard force. So we spread the magnet out and put 2 gaskets on that are actually the same as your Carter bandsaw fence. So the extra friction in the wide magnet means that even over the miter slot, the new one is as strong or stronger than the old one. So I bumped the magnet.
You cheated a little bit there.
I cheated a little bit there, but this one tends to move more, and that's even over the miter slot. So yeah, anywhere you put it on the table, you have good featherboard force. So that's benefit number 1 of the new one, and then it also has these bump feet that you can use as a stop for crosscuts. And the reason there's 2 of them, and they're micro adjustable, you can make a cut on one of them to define one side of a slot, the other one to define the other side of a slot, and then hog out the material in the middle, and you can knock out consistent slots in addition. And that one we kind of came up with because we saw people using this one as a stop for crosscuts, so leaned into that functionality and made it a bit better. So that's the story on this guy.
That makes a lot of sense, man, because I have the Magswitch, the little block magnets, that just the big chunky block.
Right.
And I use that all the time for some kind of a stop, and even at the bandsaw, I'll use it for that. So adding a little bit of extra functionality that allows you to kind of micro adjust and really have a sensible stop that's just not a weird milled end of a thing that wasn't intended for that purpose.
Right.
That's super exciting. I like that.
So that's the first one.
Excellent.
Next, what do you want to do, the miter?
Yeah, let's do the miter thing.
Okay, so this is not new functionality. The first thing it does is not something that you haven't seen before. It has two magnets. They both lock with just the single action of the plunger. And so, I put it down on your cross fins. Get this out of the way. Because its first functionality is that it can do alignment between the table, miter slot, and the blade. You want to see how well your saw is calibrated here?
Oh, God. These are things I try not to think about, because as soon as I know they're off, then I got to fix them.
All right, so this will be real fun. Let's see. I was off by 10 thou. We'll see if you're better than I was.
I think I probably made that adjustment when the saw was first brought into the shop, and I haven't even looked at it since.
All right.
Whoa.
Not bad.
Okay.
7 thou.
Okay.
So
what
you
are
were
the?
better than I was.
Is it the miter gauge that's just a little chunky in there, like the jumps that you were getting?
You might. Yeah, I'm not sure. You might have.
Sounds like the miter
It's
slot.
hitting something. Oops. It's hitting something.
That's
I'm not
also
sure.
a miter gauge that I never use on this saw. So
it'd be better if it doesn't feel like these deals that tighten it up on the slot are real
yeah.
tight. But it's not bad. I mean, I would say it's pretty close. So you're not bad. I don't know that I'd
Good. I don't
fuss
have to
around
do
with
any
it.
extra work then.
So that's functionality number one. Now there's lots of other tools that do this, but usually it's a one-trick pony, and you set it up and you do it once, and then you put this thing in a drawer for 10 years. The nice thing about this one, because it's all based on the magnetic switchable base, you can put this anywhere, like on the opposite side of the fence, so that you can dial in, like let's say you're trying to really hit a precise dimension. Get some of this junk out of the way.
This is something I've seen William Ng do a lot. He is a caliper woodworker, and he will use dial indicators to adjust his fence. So having something that like locks down on the table saw and does this and is purpose built to do that is fantastic.
Most of the time, I don't feel like that precision is needed, but if you're really trying to sneak up on a cut, like the demonstration I did in my video was, you have a slot, you want something to fit tightly in, and it's going to be visible. You need a tight fit with no gaps. You really only have a few thousandths margin of error.
Right.
So if you're trying to sneak up on it just with your gauge here, and you go a little too far and you don't know where you are, it's very easy to cut too far, and now you're backing up and wasting wood. It's just annoying. With this, you know exactly where you are. Here, I'll make a 1,000th. Okay, 2,000ths. That was a 2,000th move of the fence, and you can keep track of it. So I think this makes it a tool that you actually pull out and use more often than just the calibration. Maybe a couple times a month you have a situation where it's important and you pull it out. And anyway, so that's the story on that guy.
That's good. Well, you're right. Dial indicators, you get them, you use it that one time, you put it in a drawer, and you might not see it again.
And that's it. So
good deal.
All right.
All right. So the third one, we don't quite have the right kind of fence to fully demonstrate this, right?
So you have the aluminum, very super cool tools fence. And the idea with this one is that it can mount in the middle of the fence. And I have this flipped around so it's backwards. Ignore that for now. And obviously this is aluminum, so it doesn't work. But then put downward force on a workpiece as it's passing through the saw. So I have it set up backwards because you can also use it on the opposite side to put downward force on a piece on this side. Or if you have a fence like this, you could drill a hole in a piece of steel, and these are made to be versatile and mount it that way. So you could figure something out for a fence like this, or you can just use it on the table. Sometimes maybe both are nice. I think I'm going to use this a lot if I'm ripping like 1/8 inch plywood that's always wavy and it lifts up and chatters, or if I'm doing some kind of groove where I need a really consistent depth and some force right over the blade is handy to make sure that it's resting solidly on the saw.
Okay.
So that's that one.
Very nice. All right, can you bring all 3 of them over here? We'll tell everybody how they can find out more information and about a discount code that we have for them.
Right. Okay, so maybe, is it in the chat?
Did you put the link in the chat?
Is it link in the chat? Okay.
All right.
So
She'll do it right now.
There's going to be a link in the chat that takes you to the Black Friday sale for all of these. So it's a Black Friday pre-sale. They ship in January. They are discounted. And if you use discount code MARC, M-A-R-C, then you get an additional 10% off of that pre-sale price. So,
and if you type it in M-A-R-K, it charges you 10% more.
10% more. 10% more. Yep. Yep.
So basically, the 10% discount on top of the Black Friday launch deal, it all combines and stacks. So it's probably never going to be this cheap again in the future.
I would highly doubt it.
Matthew wants to know, is the crosscut pins clipping the insert plate?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah, it could be sitting a little high.
Actually, yeah.
Actually, yeah, because the blade is a little higher than I normally have it. So
I don't know if they heard me say that though. So.
Okay, yeah, it's really not that big of a deal though.
I'll just.
But
since
yes,
we're talking about
he's absolutely right. He was saying that the reason the miter gauge was getting hung up was because the fence was actually hitting the insert, and that's pretty much what was happening. Because the blade was higher than it usually is. So the insert was popped up.
I don't know how he saw that, and we're here in person and we missed it, but.
Because we're dumb.
We're dumb.
Well, I'm speaking for myself. This is the guy that, reinvents the wheel and does it well. All right, so link is in the chat room. It's a long Magswitch link, but ultimately that's for today only, the Black Friday stuff. After today, the price goes up, but they can still use the 10% coupon, correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
so that's
and
good.
the 10% coupon is good for anything else in Magswitch catalog. So if you want anything else, then you can use that, and it should
Which
work.
is really good, though, because people see me using those. I have them all over the place. Just the little blocks that are great as stops and hold downs. Basically, the stuff that's the core of like what's in here, and they're pretty. I mean, they're not the cheapest thing in the world, so those are nice to have. Excellent, good deal.
So
thank you, Andy. We're gonna rustle some microphones again.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. Okay. Nicole, you're back
Michael
in business.
says Andy never ceases to amaze him.
Andy does some good stuff.
What are the materials made of? James wants to know.
Plastic.
The miter indicators.
Okay. So this guy, so the base here, this whole thing is aluminum. The yellow stuff is there, what kind of plastic is it, do you know? I don't know. It's yellow plastic.
It's yellow.
High grade yellow plastic. Yeah, we do not have a very good system for having guests, like to accommodate guests.
I want to switch.
Yeah, I know. I'm working.
Watching.
I'm working. They're watching Andy pack up. It's really exciting. You guys want to continue?
Am I still on camera?
No.
You are now. So Andy is probably going to get his stuff together and take off because he's got a lot to do. And this launch, you got the Vice launch happened not too long ago.
Somebody said they got theirs.
I saw
today.
people posting videos of their Vices.
So if anyone's grumpy that I'm here and not packing Vices, that's my next stop.
Yeah, he's on his way.
And now that he's been exposed to the sickness, he has a limited window.
You're right.
Yeah, see? He was getting ready to sit down and enjoy himself for a little bit, but now he's like, I'm out of here. Well, he's got, he told me the wife and son are out of town right now, so he's got a few days to kind of play catch up to get all this stuff under control.
It's about a 3-day incubation period.
Yeah, so you got just enough time, man. All right. Well, hey, thank you, Andy, for coming by. I'm not going to give you an awkward handshake because I'll just get you sick. I think we're going to get back to the show, right? Yeah, we'll do one of these, jobbers.
Thanks again, guys.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Hey, your thingies.
Those are yours.
Oh, those are mine?
Squeeze. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. I got new toys, guys. That's great. Let us know if the kids are doing anything bad in there. He's got to go through the house.
You're like,
Oh,
hi.
that's so great. Yeah, Andy's a good dude. We got to get the kids together more often. Lincoln and Mateo were good friends for a while there, and then everybody got busy. They probably don't even remember each other now.
They do.
You know what's fantastic? I just took a sip of your coffee. And now I'm going to get sick again. You little... Okay, let's do a show.
Got a pen or a pencil? Don't drink it.
Yeah, you're going to write on there with a white pencil on a white lid. Okay, let's get some stuff going here.
I've been pulling questions.
I'll tell you, out of all of those, I'm super stoked to have them, regardless, because gifts are awesome. I'm really excited about the double-sided featherboard and those stops that are included on that. I think that's probably the one out of the 3 that I would use the most.
Cool.
And clearly, my table saw is set up perfectly, so I don't even need that other thing. Just kidding. We'll see. Okay, so I don't have any of the Patreon questions here.
Did you have any Patreon thank yous?
Maybe. Hold on.
Somebody already got an order.
Somebody ordered the Magswitch stuff. Hey, good on you. Patreon. Hold on a second. Patreon. There we go. Oh, I should mention, we actually, I forgot to say, this is an affiliate thing as well.
Hashtag ad.
Yeah, hashtag ad. So if you do make this purchase, regardless of the pricing, if you use our coupon code, that goes into our affiliate program. So when Andy approached me about doing this, I would have let him do it anyway, regardless, because he's a friend. But if you make these purchases, Andy is getting his cut. Magswitch, of course, is making the product, and then we get a small percentage of it as well. So this is a good way to support a bunch of people. And unless you don't like us, then I wouldn't buy it, because you're helping out people you don't like. What's up with that? But seriously, though, it is a affiliate program, the standard kind of affiliate stuff that we usually do, like Amazon and things like that. So, of course, we appreciate your support.
Holy moly, there's a lot of sales on Amazon. That's honestly how I'm doing all my shopping this year.
I feel sick now.
Get out of here.
Okay, so Marcus is the only one that I have on Patreon. Thank you, Marcus, for becoming a patron. And that's at patreon.com/woodwhisperer if you want to get involved in supporting the show that way.
I'm sorry, I forgot to post the questions.
Yeah, we usually post the questions.
Seriously, I think I need
Well, look, it was Thanksgiving. It's been busy.
Yeah, it's been a little
All right,
nutty.
questions. Let's get to the meat
I
and taters. I'm going to, by the way, be wearing holiday Christmas-focused shirts. Where's my new one from Target?
I'm washing it.
Okay, so I'll be wearing each week until Christmas. I'll be wearing all of my stupid shirts.
All right, I want to
Stupid holiday shirts.
If you get this. Does this work? No, that doesn't work. Why doesn't that work?
I don't know.
Oop.
Let's just ask some questions, Nicole.
All right.
Let's get to it.
Oh, because it's too long. All right.
Does Millie get jealous of Dougie's new celebrity? Now, Dougie's new celebrity, it's not new. He was kind of immediate launch into success from the minute he was born. And the fact that Bulldogs won the, what do you call it, the dog show yesterday.
That's what he's talking about.
Oh, is that what I thought he was talking about just in general about his Instagram account. Well, I'm just, it's early, Nicole. No, she's not. Millie is a humble little lady. Nothing will make her jealous, except for food. Okay, so Nicole's got a question here for me.
From David D.
From David D. Built some cutting boards as holiday gifts, but the Padauk and hickory are more porous and open-grained than planned. Thoughts on how to fill the grain? Leave it, scrap the boards, mineral oil, beeswax finish. I would just say leave it. I mean, you really did pick two open pore pocketed woods, right? Like if you look at the top, the grain structure on that face surface is such that it's very pitted and the grain lines can be very deep. And those are two woods that exhibit that property. I am of mixed feelings about this. I think there's a lot of information being shared by woodworkers about what's safe and what isn't. And I don't think these woodworkers have the scientific knowledge or testing to back up what they say. So I am of mixed feelings about this because in some ways, little nooks and crannies in the surface of a cutting board seem like a great place for bacteria to grow. But then you read some studies that have been done that show that the natural sort of antibacterial properties of wood, its porosity, the fact that it kind of breathes to some extent and it dries fairly quickly, all those things contribute to antimicrobial properties of the wood. So which is it? Like, is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think ideally a cutting board being made out of something like maple or cherry, a wood that doesn't have those little pore pockets in there, is probably better. Is it absolutely detrimental if there are grain lines and deep little things for material to get, like microscopic things to get lodged into? Is that detrimental? I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal. I just made some cutting boards which include walnut, and walnut is in that same sort of family where you have that grain structure that allows things to possibly set down into them, and I'm not really that worried about it. So that's just my personal opinion as a woodworker who is not totally well versed in the true science behind this stuff, because there really isn't a whole lot of true science behind it. I wish there was more info for us to go on. I would say use the boards, continue to work with them. Now that said, you did mention Padauk. I'm not happy at all about Padauk being in a cutting board. Padauk is a wood that tends to be very oily. It's an exotic that kind of, I'm surprised when you put oil on there. I'd be surprised if you don't see the color bleeding into the hickory. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit and talk about just the use of Padauk in a cutting board in general would not be one of my favorite choices for that. I would be a little bit cautious about that.
Don't we have Padauk in that cutting board?
No.
What is it?
Purple Heart.
Oh.
See, but Purple Heart, yes, being an exotic, if you're eating it, that could be problematic, but you're not. And it doesn't really leach color or anything, and it's not overly oily like Padauk is. So again, backtracking a little bit, I think the Padauk is a little bit problematic for other reasons than the grain structure, if that makes any sense. The other thing is, keep in mind, if you ever have a board that seems like, oh crap, I didn't realize this wood isn't good, I don't want to give this to people, you could always rebrand these boards as dry boards, cheese boards, things that aren't going to be wet food contact. Charcuterie boards. Yeah.
Charcuterie. I don't know how to say it.
Charcuterie?
Is it shark?
I think so.
I still can't say it. When you say it, I still can't say it.
Cheese boards.
Cheese boards.
And you keep it mostly for dry things, or a breadboard. Keep it mostly for dry things, and you should be fine. That's if you're being super cautious.
You were right.
Oh, see, I was right about that. He was talking about Instagram fame. Yeah.
There's a question right here.
Millie was rooting for the Doberman, but, what are you going to do? Chris's question? Mm-hmm. Okay, Chris Kalnassi says, where do you draw a line for helpful tools versus newer woodworkers? For example, when you did the string inlay with a router versus the jigs. You've mentioned the domino versus mortise and tenon several times. Oh gosh, this is a tough question for me to answer, Chris, in this format. This is something I would have to put thought into, to give you a reasonable answer. Let me just say generically, running off of the domino and mortise and tenon idea. I honestly think that if you want to be a well-rounded woodworker, you should know how to do things. And if you have tools that create shortcuts for you or give you better results, those are fine. But I do think having, saw skills, chisel skills, if you can construct a mortise and tenon without any of these other tools, it's not just bragging rights. That's actually something that will help you as a woodworker. It will make you a better woodworker just in general. If you are a sort of, a woodworker who's more focused on the end product than the journey, and you're always going to be moving more and more into automation and going into things like CNC, you may not be as concerned about being that well-rounded woodworker. That's not your priority, and it's perfectly fine. So I think this is not a black and white thing. I think it depends on the person and their personal interests and what they want to do. If you want to be the kind of woodworker that I am, because that's the only kind that I'm intimately familiar with, then you're probably going to want to learn some of those things. So starting out as a woodworker and buying a domino is probably a great way to ensure that you're not going to know how to cut one by hand. Once you can make it with a domino, why would you ever bother cutting it by hand? But the skill set required to cut it with lower level tools is so applicable to so many other things in woodworking that you are missing out on some things. It's not just about mortise and tenon, it's the foundations around that. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stanley.
A super chat.
Thank you, Stanley.
Hi there. This is Stanley Bauer. He says, hi there, attempting to refresh a salvaged wood table from Restoration Hardware. Tried to lightly sand some damaged areas. One thing led to another, and I sanded off all the patina. It looks like 2x4s. Dude, that's a bummer.
That's like the hidden secret to those stores. Have you ever been in Restoration Hardware?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very expensive.
It's very expensive, and it's kind of sad that it just looks like two.
Well, and they specialize in, this type of thing where, and I don't know too much about it directly and how, like, what their process is. But I wonder.
He wants to know thoughts on the finish.
Yeah, I just wonder how truly salvaged it was. You know what I mean? Like, they say it's salvaged, but was it a faux finish or just made to look that way, or was it truly a salvaged piece? Regardless, you sanded the crap out of it. So, so it looks like 2x4s.
We don't mean to be laughing.
No. I mean, I get it. As a person who, like, early on in my woodworking would find a table and go like, hey, you want me to refinish that for you? And then I find out that there's this thing called veneer and how fast you could sand through it, right? These are mistakes that we all make. The best thing to do, I think at this point, I assume, well, what does he say? The reason, so he wanted to refresh it. Mm-hmm. I guess you still want it to look salvaged. Mm. There are ways to create that. There are ways to age a piece. I would look into some of those methods of taking new material and making it look old. There are ways to use weathering materials on there. There used to be, I don't even know the name of the brand, but a product that would add graying to the surface. Mm-hmm. You could use a combination of stains. You could beat it up a little bit. People do that to create that faux distressed finish. And then any kind of stain you put on top of that tends to sit down into all those little dents and scratches and things that you made, and that helps give it that look. So I would do my best to recreate that, because any general stain or finish you put on top of this thing, if you've sanded it that clean and smooth and it just looks like 2x4s, you're not going to be happy with that, right? So you may have to put a little bit of research and a little bit more work into it to actually dent this thing. Sometimes it could be as simple as throwing a set of car keys across the surface. Like, that actually will wear the surface and put little baby dents in there. You find people using chains, like they beat furniture with chains to put dents into the surface. Little taps with a hammer. Screwdrivers are good for this. It just depends on the type of look you're going for, what kind of aged look you want. So do that research, and I think it's probably worth putting in the time to try to get that look back and make it, salvage it. Salvage that salvaged wood.
I feel bad. That's an expensive place.
Looks like 2x4. So they salvaged it from, like, an old house project where they took the 2x4s out of the walls. What are you going to do?
Scroll all the way down.
Okay, okay. What am I looking at?
Well, right there.
Okay.
There's a delay.
There's a delay. Tim JB says, think of adding an addendum video to your older projects on things you might change or alternative solutions to the ones chosen at the time. Well, we've done this. Mm-hmm. In the guild. I'm not going to say it's frequent. I've done it a number of times, though, where I will go back and revisit an old project and talk about, a lot of times it's the finish. How has the finish held up? Does it need to be refinished? If so, let's do that. I've got the shaker tables now. I've got both of them in my possession since my mom's kind of moving cross country. I may take both of those videos, or both of the tables, bring them into the shop and do a quick video showing how both of these tables have held up over time. So that is something that I do like to do. I even have a video, this is an older one, but on the Wood Whisperer free side of things, I did a video called, was it the Humble Pie video? Mm-hmm. Where I went back and looked at a bunch of old projects and how they've held up, things I might change, things I do differently, the chessboard, how that exploded, wood movement issues, things like that. So yeah, this is something that we have done and probably will continue to do. The thing is, when you do this stuff early on, you don't think we're going to be doing this for 15 years and that we'll have this opportunity to look at how these things age over time, but that's how it turned out, and it's cool to be able to do that.
I think the Adirondack chair was kind of neat to see.
The Adirondack chair was a fun one to show how, like, mistreating these finishes. The great thing was, at the end of the Adirondack series, I talked about how important covers are. And I bought those custom covers.
And you just laid it on top of them.
Well, what happened was the covers came off, and this was back in Arizona. And then one day, I go out there to pick one up. I'm like, I should probably hose this thing off and use it. And a freaking cat had peed in it. So, and I don't know how long ago the cat peed in it. One of the neighbor's cats peed on it, and the pee was just locked in under layers. And I'm just like, no, this thing has to go. Goodbye cover. And I just never got new covers for it. So they got very, very worn with the Arizona weather.
Party people.
All right, what else we got?
Let's see. Donnie's. Sure.
No.
Oh, okay. I'll just, right there.
Okay, Don's Woodies. Is it a bad thing to leave a bandsaw blade under tension all the time, different for thin versus wide? You know, I don't know. I honestly don't know. What I can tell you from experience is I haven't done this in the past. And I had a bandsaw at one time that started to make some noise. And what it sounded to me like was a shaft that was bent. And we couldn't figure out where the noise was coming from. And it wasn't really killing performance per se, but it was a problem. Because it's like, once you start hearing that little tick noise, it's like, what is going on here? It drives you nuts. And I kept that thing under tension constantly. So I don't know. Like I used to be a naysayer about this and go, well, who cares? It's made to be under tension. That's what the saw is built to do. But if it sits there for a long time under tension, you got to think that something eventually might start to give. It may create a flat in your bandsaw tires. Maybe it is going to possibly create a slight bend in the shaft that holds the wheels in place. Maybe not. Maybe that won't happen. But I did have a saw that started to behave a little bit weirdly, and I did always keep it under tension. So now, because a lot of saws come with the ability to detension. If you have the quick and easy ability to pull a little lever down, why not do it? So if you can't see it right now, but both of my bandsaws are detensioned because they both came with an arm that allows me to do that. I sometimes forget and I don't freak out and wake up in the middle of the night and come out here and detension my bandsaw. But the next day, if I'm not using the saw, I will come in here and go, oh, I should detension that. And I try to be good about that. But does it actually create real world problems? That I'm not 100% sure of, and I just have that one experience to draw from. You got another one for me?
Sure. Jerome, nice long one. I'm not reading that.
Which one? Okay, well, you're highlighting a different one.
Oh, sorry.
So pre-finishing question from Jerome Cornet. He says, when gluing a frame and panel cabinet door, do you pre-finish only the panel or also the rails and stiles? I always pre-finish the panel, but since I often end up having to plane, sand, flush the frame after the glue up, this is the same for me. Doing so, finishing the inside part of the frame near the panel is still tricky. How do you do it? I mean, I might do it different ways depending on how I feel that day. I may not do anything because ultimately if there's a little bit of movement, it's usually not that big of a deal. If you are using some kind of an oil-based finish, a lot of times that oil kind of wicks in under the panel and into the groove. So again, still not a huge deal. But if I do pre-finish, I might just give the panel a quick coat only to color it. I don't really want to fully finish that panel. Just giving it enough so that if the panel does shrink and you would normally see those light colored lines exposing themselves there, you won't see that, right? And then I finish the whole door in the end, finish it as a whole. I will never pre-finish the panel. What was that noise? Sounded like something buzzing. I will never fully, maybe. I will never fully pre-finish the frame because you're absolutely right. After you put that frame together, you've got to flush it and sand it and clean it up. So if it's pre-finished, you're just going to burn through all that stuff. So yeah, typically what I do, whatever you're finishing it with, give the panel a single coat, then I put everything together and then I finish the whole thing later. If you can, get the inside rails finished depending on the frame structure. If you have joinery there and you've got like a mortise and tenon where your rail and stile comes together, pre-finishing is a little bit tricky because you're going to pre-finish the edge of the rail and stile. At some point it contacts the rail, right? So you don't want to send your finish all the way through. If you have a mitered frame, it's much easier. Then you could just kind of sand and pre-finish those insides of all four pieces. When you put them together, the finish isn't going to hurt anything. It's going to be perfectly fine. But that is something to consider because finishing that inside edge is kind of a pain in the butt after it's done. And really the only thing you'd have to worry about is if you pre-finish that edge, after you do your sanding of the frame, you might take away some of it, whatever little profile you put on there. If you just broke the edge, you might sand some of that away and have to add that back in, which is not that big of a deal.
Okay.
Yeah. Thomas says, how are things going with your workshop floor? Well, we had a company come out to give us an estimate and tell us like what our chances are of being able to, jack the slabs up and do all that fun stuff. And basically we had two companies, and these are the companies that like they specialize in, as I understand it, basically they're drilling holes and they're pumping in foam, and that foam lifts the slabs back up to their original position. We've had that done in the driveway because we had some really bad spots out there. Inside here though, it's so much square footage that they would have to do this to. And what the guy said is it's not just that you have, settling. He's like, you've got settling plus heaving. So settling in one area, heaving in the center. He's like, even if we raise the slab back up and reintroduce this grade back here, it's not actually going to get rid of the heaved section. He said, so considering how you use the space, he's like, I think your best bet is to grind down the high spots, and eventually, if it's not me, it might be the next owner, someone is probably going to have to re-pour the entire garage floor at some point, and that is not in the cards right now. So what we will likely do during our break in December, we're probably going to rent some kind of a grinding system. I know our local Home Depot rents probably just a handheld grinder and just nick off the high spots. Like, not totally level this thing, just kind of try to reduce the trip hazards. And that is essentially where we're going to end up. I had a lot of people make suggestions that are all good suggestions in most cases, or in other cases, like building a new subfloor. Essentially, right on top of the concrete, build a floor that goes on top of that, a whole structure with plywood. That sounds fantastic until you realize, number one, my grade in here is severe. So getting that grade, especially if we even come close to level, holy smokes, that would be a heck of a job. But the problem is the floor is, it's crazy. And I think probably the bigger problem is that the floor is not done moving. It still moves. So if we put something on top of that, now we have no visibility of what's going on with the concrete, and we just have to wait until the floor has a major issue for us to be able to see what's going on with the base structure. Other ideas people had were like self-leveler. Unless you got a truck that's going to like back up to the garage and dump as much self-leveler as we would need for this, the self-leveler, again, it feels like you would need too much. This is not a self-leveler problem. This is like re-pour kind of problem. So, other solutions out there, I wish they would work, but they're just not going to happen. I think we just got to remove the trip hazards. What's that?
Another question.
Okay.
I can't talk.
Brett, I'm doing a large tabletop glue up. Is there any value in breaking it up? Say glue up in sections that put all the sections together. Oh, okay. So kind of like a bench top. Sometimes it's a really wide bench. You got a lot of pieces to glue up. He's asking, should you do it in sections or do it all at once? I like to do these things all at once because inevitably when I do a small section and another small section, right, each board has a tendency when you bring them together to maybe not be flat with one another, right? So if you glue up two sections, now they're fairly flat, and you bring them together, if they're even slightly out of flat, you kind of create a major problem, right? That slight angle now translates over the course of the other width. So if you're confident that you can bring them together and still keep, drop a 4-foot straight edge on there and still keep it nice and flat, then go for it. I'm not that confident in my ability to do that, so I'd rather use a slow drying glue, get all my pieces together, and do the glue up in one fell swoop, just in one shot, and then I'm much more confident that the whole thing is going to be nice and flat. Okay, what else? Let's see. I'll get this one. Cable says, or Cabell, after Stumpy Nub's accident, any tool power tool combination you would advise against? Well, anything I would have advised against before his accident would be the same after his accident. His accident hasn't changed my feelings on any power tool.
On that, it was that Galahad.
Yeah, the
thing,
Holy,
right?
well, no, the Holy Galahad, it's the Lancelot. So it's King Arthur Tools.
Yeah.
Makes all of these goofy name things. I actually like it. But they make it looks like a chainsaw sort of thing that goes on a grinder. It's meant to be used in a very specific way. I ordered one because I was doing, it might have been the sculpted rocker. I wanted to have an idea of like, what are the different options out there? So we've got the burr discs you could put on a grinder. You've got the, I can't remember, I'm forgetting the name. who's the company that makes the Arbortech? Arbortech. You got the Arbortech blades. They got their turbo plane and the industrial carver. All the different burr options from Kutzall and also King Arthur tools. They have their Holy Galahad discs. And then there's this chainsaw disc thing, monstrosity. I ordered one. I put it together, and the one thing that separates me and Stumpy Nubs is I put it together and I said, nope. And he put it together and actually tried to use it. I did not have any confidence with that tool that it would not maim me in some way.
It was scary looking.
It was scary. So I immediately, I don't know if we sold it, gave it away, or we did something, but I never even turned it on. So there are some tools that you just look at, and whether or not it's truly a matter of like it's just in like naturally unsafe, whether that's the case or not, if you aren't comfortable with it, don't use it. And that's the case that I had with that particular tool. So I definitely have over the years gravitated a little bit more toward the grinding burr discs. I think they're easier to control. They're a little more forgiving. Should something go south, it's not going to be as bad. I guess potentially, because we don't know. I mean, a lot of times you get your finger caught and wedged, all hell's gonna break loose anyway. But there are some tools that look like they could do more damage faster than other types. So that's my thought on that particular tool. In general, I don't know. I mean, I still do the same things I've always done. And if you know how to use a tool properly and you fully understand what can go wrong and how it can go wrong, that goes a long way into preventing you from making certain mistakes. I didn't watch the video, but from what I understand, Stumpy does say that he did a few things wrong and he laid those out. Either the initial video or a follow-up video, he laid those things out. So it's not like the tool just jumped up and attacked him. But some tools require much more attention to detail than others. And if the average user is going to pick this up and maybe not fully understand the instructions and doesn't have someone to show them how to use it, and they may have a result like he did, yeah, maybe it's a tool we should probably mostly avoid, especially in the presence of other tools that do the same thing or get pretty close to the same thing in a much more user-friendly way.
Ba-dum-bum.
Ba-dum-bum.
Let's see, Josh.
Here?
Yeah.
Have you used the Makita track saw with the TS? Nope. So he's asking about combining the Makita tracks with the TS55 Festool saw. I haven't. I've got Festool tracks, so I've never had a need to use the Makita. The only other track saw I've ever had in the shop is the DeWalt, and I did a review on that years ago. That was when DeWalt was like the first competitor to the Festool. Since then, Makita has come out, other companies have come out, and I don't know offhand how they combine and what can be used with what. But you know what? The Festool's owner group, Festool Owners Group, is probably your best bet for finding out things like compatibility between track saw systems. Jeannie Grassi says, ever since I put on a new bandsaw blade, 1/2" 3 TPI, it hasn't been tracking well enough to through recalibration many times. Can a blade cause this? Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, if you got a bum blade or a blade with a kink in it, something weird going on, you could certainly have tracking issues. But if the blade, as it's running, it's running true, you don't see the occasional dum, 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 that kind of tells you there's a kink or something in it. It might not be the blade. It's hard to say. The thing is, if you can't get the tracking perfect and you're following the let's call it the Snodgrass method, if you're following those instructions and you get it pretty close but it's still not tracking, I don't think there's anything wrong with simply changing your fence for the drift and adjusting, which is the way that in the past that I was taught to do it, is get the blade on there, get it tensioned properly, and adjust for the drift. The Snodgrass method is supposed to eliminate the need for adjusting for the drift. But a little bit of drift is fine. It's not that big of a deal, and most fences have the ability for slight adjustment, either in the fence that hooks onto the table or the actual fence system itself, some way of just kind of bloop, bloop, one way or the other to adjust for the drift. That's what I would recommend doing if you feel it's still cutting fairly true without the fence, and it's only an issue where when the fence is squared to the table and you start to cut and it starts to drift, try to adjust that out, and I think you can go on with life. Did you see, by the way, speaking of Stumpy Nubs, did you see he posted that that YouTube flagged his video as not appropriate for advertisers, or I guess some advertisers, which basically means it's demonetized, because his thumbnail is a gruesome photo of his raw, 80-20 ground chuck hand.
Good. I hate seeing gnarly photos, especially on Facebook. That's why in our groups, I'm like, don't do it.
Yeah, it's always risky because the thing is, a lot of people don't want to see it.
I don't want to see it.
Some people need to see it.
Makes me want to barf.
I mean, some people need to see it,
Yeah.
but a lot of people aren't subscribing to a woodworker to see a gruesome photo.
A stumpy nub.
To see some stumpy nubs. So yeah, he got that video demonetized, and I guess the video's blowing up for him too. So it's a revenue loss. But look, when you put blood in your thumbnail, you got to expect something to not go right. Yeah. Anyway.
There's a super chat.
Super chat. Looks like he's healing up though, which is good.
That's good.
Oh,
what is going on?
oh,
with
you
that?
can resize that. I had no idea. That was an accident. Okay, movie pitch. The Assemblers, IKEA Wars. Woodworking superheroes band together to fight the scourge of particle board furniture. Starring Mark, Matt. Oh, it just went away.
Oh, it's right there.
No, on that.
Oh.
Jay Bates, James King, Stumpy Nubs. Nice. I think Stumpy Nubs would have to be the character, like the Iron Man character, that has that fatal flaw that gets rebuilt into a more powerful human being with his mechanical hand. That'd be good. Okay. What else?
I have questions. You're not looking at them.
I have answers. Okay, Jack Dolby says, my resaw blade is dull. I stupidly cut an antler in half for my dogs to chew. Is there any way to sharpen it? It's not carbide tipped. Look, with a bandsaw blade, that's a lot of toofuses. There's a lot of toofuses. I won't even sharpen like my hand saws myself, and there's not that many toofuses on there. So if you're gonna, I guess there probably is. I would never do it. Bandsaw blades, unless you're talking about, like a Resaw King or something, which is carbide tipped, you send it back to the company, they resharpen it for you. General use bandsaw blades, I don't personally think it's worth my time to sit there and actually resharpen them. Can it be done? Probably. But you also want to take a look. If you just cut something really dense, really hard, you may take a look at those teeth. You may have more than something that a resharpening can fix. You may have damage. And in that case, again, it's just even further down the path of, no, it's not worth it. Just buy a new blade. But take a close look, and maybe they just need a little bit of touching up, and you've got the skills and the tools to do that sharpening, so you might jump into it. But for me personally, I don't think it's worth it. Where are we? I'm going back and forth.
Yeah.
Well, see, Glenn is talking about the floor situation. You could build a false floor with leveling feet under the concrete. That way, if things change in the floor, you could adjust the leveling feet to bring things back into level. But the problem with this, Glenn, is how do you know what's happening? Like, you've got a false floor. Yes, you have leveling feet, but we're standing on it. Changes will happen that aren't totally visible. The only time something's going to become visible if there's a major change and a big problem, in which case I'm now trying to figure out how to get this floor back to level again. Here's the other thing, it also creates a big step down from the garage into the driveway. And we sometimes do get moisture penetration in there because this still is a garage with 3 garage doors here. So the whole false floor thing just doesn't sound like a great project. It doesn't sound like a good long-term solution. To reiterate, my long-term solution is to get rid of the trip hazard, and then probably, if we're still here in 15 years, whenever it becomes so much of a problem, have the whole thing repoured, and then sell the house and run away. Run away as fast as possible. But yeah, I mean, the false floor sounds like a great idea. I'd love it, but I don't think it's the right choice for us. Okay, you had a question here?
Sure, I have lots of them.
Brian Thorpe says, what sharpening steels do you use? What?
I don't know.
I don't understand that question. What sharpening steels do you use?
I don't know.
What's a sharpening steel?
I'm going to say...
He's either using the wrong terminology or an old terminology that I don't understand. Like, maybe he's talking about sharpening stones?
Maybe.
I use
Shapton
ceramic stones.
But
They're
you just
basically
got-
water stones.
You just got the Empower one.
Empower did send me their little unit. You basically keep everything flat and horizontal, and then you move the sharpening medium like
And I
so.
think they're giving me one to give away for our Christmas show.
Oh, nice. So I'm assuming you're talking about sharpening stones. That's what I use. And the Shapton stones are fantastic. They're like water stones, a little more durable. They last longer. They're pretty pricey, but they're good. It's a good investment. I've been using the same ones since I started woodworking.
Are they doing any kind of sales right now? No, they're UK. They don't know what Thanksgiving is.
Maybe.
No, it's. Did you know that Belforce is having a Black Friday sale?
Yes, 25% off.
25% off. You got to know the code, though. Somebody put it in the chat. I can't remember what it is.
So it looks like a couple people are referencing like kitchen knives, diamond steel for kitchen knives. I don't know. That's out of my pay grade, guys. Mike wants to know, what's a good size bandsaw to purchase for a beginner or first one? Well, I don't know if it's the best solution because ultimately you might want to upgrade at some point, but I would say most, woodworkers starting out are getting 14-inch bandsaws. It's still a big tool, but you get a decent amount of clearance on it. Usually you get a decent amount of power. You can get a lot done with a 14-inch. There is a point though, if you resaw, you get a lot of rough stock and you want to start cutting that down, or you want to make veneer, that the 14-inch saw might show its weaknesses over time, and you want to upgrade to the next level, something like 18-inch, 20-inch, whatever that is. And that's why I actually think it's worth the real estate for me to have two bandsaws. I've got one set up with a smaller, thinner blade for curve cuts, and then one that's a little bit more dedicated to straight cuts, wide curves, and resawing. Because it's two very different tasks, and to change the blades back and forth all the time is just a pain in the butt. But I started with a 14-inch saw, and I still have one today. So I do think a 14-inch saw is a pretty solid investment. But look around. You could probably find a good used one, and then maybe that frees up some budget later if you need to upgrade or maybe add a second bandsaw to your set.
Let's see. Question. Here we go. From Mason. Help!
Help, Mason says. I need to make a rolling pin, but I can't decide what finish to use. What would my best option be? Thanks. And it needs to be done before Christmas, so I don't have much time to do the research. Okay. Well, I just finished up some kitchen items. I don't have any here. I have it's not one I made, but I have a spoon. There's a spoon here. I must have been using it as a model. So, I've been doing some kitchen stuff. I'm using Tried and True oil. Tried and True is a polymerized linseed oil. They make a couple different varieties, but they're all pretty comparable. 100% food safe. It does cure, so the one thing I would urge you to do is stay away from mineral oil. A lot of people use mineral oil on kitchen items. There's really nothing wrong with it per se. It's
Which
a classic. Any one of them. I use the varnish oil the most. Tried and True's varnish oil.
I'm going to add this to our Amazon store.
Okay.
So under Friday Live on Amazon.com/shop/The Wood Whisperer.
Okay. So
I got to get my pitch in there.
there's two knocks against mineral oil that I'm going to give you to consider. And if someone uses mineral oil and you like it, it's classic finish, nothing wrong with it. It's going to be perfectly fine. But I don't like it. And one is that it never dries. Mineral oil always stays in its oil form. So it absorbs into the wood. And then over time, with use, the item starts to leach out some of that oil, or it rubs off or washes off, and the piece starts to look dry. So then you reapply some oil. And some people put some wax in there too. You can make some good formulations for that are kind of nice for kitchen items. I want an oil that cures. I don't want the oil to stay wet all the time. So I use a polymerized oil. So polymerized linseed oil, that's what Tried and True is. You pretty much treat it like any other oil, except for you're not gonna just soak it, right? Like a lot of people will do a mineral oil soak. They'll totally submerge it. And I don't know how they get away with that, because anytime I've done that, it just leaches mineral oil for days. And it's just this constant, messy, slimy, oily mess. Not my thing, it's not my jam. So I have started to use this Tried and True. You wipe on a nice thin coat, you let it dry 24 hours, you wipe on another coat. You basically put on as many coats as you could stand. And there's a point where you go, I just want to start using this thing. You take it in the house and start using it, and it's fine. But that oil cures. It actually will dry and cure. And the more you apply, the more protective it will be. So that, to me, is a better go-to finish. Buy a gallon of that stuff and use it for as long as you can. Keep applying it to old kitchen items, new kitchen items, whatever it is. I think it's a great choice for something like that.
Fun fact, Tried and True, not available in Amazon UK store. It's just one of the essential oils that come up.
Only essential. Well, I don't know that I'd use essential oils.
But in Canada, is that the same thing?
That's a stain.
Oh.
The Canadian store has stain.
Weird.
So it's only in the U.S. I wonder if they ship from their website. Well, apparently they must not.
Interesting, huh?
But they do have Tried and True on Amazon in the U.S.
Yeah, but not in Canada or UK.
Yeah.
I'm guessing maybe you could buy it from a specialty store.
Title suggestion, mineral oil, not my jam. So, and that's the thing, I think mineral oil is fine. It's a classic thing. The other knock against it, and this is a minor one. I don't think it's that big of a deal because I do think it is safe. But it is a petroleum product, right? And sometimes you just think about using petroleum products on food items. It's just one of those things that mommy bloggers like to talk about. You know what I'm saying, Nicole? She knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. But again, Tried and True, I think it's a great food safe finish. And here's the cool thing, warm it up and it makes it nice and loose and you could wipe it in and it's all fun. I actually have my setup over here. I could show you later on. I've got a little hot plate and a cast iron thing that I used to use for like beans and stuff on the grill. I put the oil in there and I just warm it up a little bit, put a little bit of beeswax or carnauba wax in there. You can get a nice wax oil mixture that is pretty good. A lot of fun. I have a lot of fun with these things, guys. It's good times.
Go ahead and, I was going to do that one.
Okay, I'm going to do that one.
Uh-huh.
Mason, does Tried and True need to be reapplied over time then too? Or is it a once and done? No, it is not a once and done thing. Any oil applied to an item that's going to be used a lot, potentially cleaned and washed, is going to need reapplication. With the Tried and True material, you won't need to reapply as often. It's more effective at keeping moisture out, and it stays on the wood and lasts longer. So yes, you will need to, at some point, refresh it and reapply it, but it isn't going to be as frequent as you might with mineral oil.
Here's the question I was going to give you.
Okay, Matt, he needs a diagnosis.
I got the fever.
More cowbell?
And the fever is cowbell.
He needs some cowbell. All right. I have no problem buying tools, but when buying lumber, get indecision and sticker shock. Is this something you've seen, or do I just need to get over it? Suggestions. You do need to get over it, Matt, except for this is something I understand. I say get over it with sympathy. Because the problem is, in the beginning, especially when I first started out, I was very apprehensive about cutting quality wood because I wasn't that confident in my cuts. I wasn't that confident in my plans and what I was doing. I always felt like I might make a mistake and waste this really expensive wood. But something happens over time, and it is a matter of like building a callus. You're getting a little bit jaded to that because you're getting more confident in your skills. You're less likely to make a mistake. So a high-priced piece of wood not really going to make you nervous because you purchased the wood to do a particular thing, you're cutting it to a particular size, and you're going to get the finished product that you wanted. I think it's only when you have a little bit of fear and uncertainty about what's going to happen when you cut it that things get a little bit sketchy. Now, I will say, yes, when someone comes over and says, hey, can you just resaw something on your bandsaw? I don't have a bandsaw big enough. And it's this beautiful, prized, figured material, and they want me to resaw it. I get nervous. I get nervous because number one, it's not my material. Number two, resawing a wide board down this way into like two boards is pretty risky because you don't know what the wood is going to do. Even if you cut it perfectly and the saw is tuned up, the wood might go haywire and create all kinds of problems. And I've seen some nightmare situations with that. So because of my lack of confidence in what's actually going to happen, then I get nervous again. But over time, just generally speaking, you want to buy some good quality walnut, but you're terrified to cut into it. That is something that you will hopefully become jaded to as you get more confident in your skills, in your setups, and then the cost of the wood is nothing different than like, I don't want to spend a lot of money on an expensive cup of coffee, or like you just become cheap because you're cheap, right? But it's not fear that you're going to destroy the material that prevents you from wanting to spend that money.
I have a problem with fabric.
Do you? Like good quality fabric?
No, it's on sale, so I buy it. I go, I could probably use that sometime.
Yeah.
So now I got all this fabric. I'm like, I got to make some blankets.
You sound like a woodworker, huh? Someone said Lee Valley sells Tried and True in Canada.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I saw there was a few in Canada that sells it. There was also another question that I had for you.
Mineral oil is more of a marmalade. Nice, Matthew.
From
That's a good
William.
one.
Valentine.
What is, Mark, is it, I'm just making up words today.
I know.
Is it absolutely necessary to have a workbench? Working in a 2-car garage space is at a premium. Can you get by with that one? Well, that's for you to answer, William. Try building some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can get creative. That's right. You can get creative with clamping to other things. Sometimes people can just put a couple of sawhorses and a piece of plywood on top of it and have no problem. I think if you're starting to get into hand tool usage and you need the ability to really securely lock things down so you can put all your body force against it, a good heavy workbench is a great solution for that. But I'm going to say very generically, no, it's not necessary. There are solutions for knockdown, workbench, work center type things on folding legs. There's all kinds of things that you could do in lieu of a workbench. Will it be as good as a workbench? No, but if you're compromising because you're short on space, there's absolutely no reason you have to have a workbench. But yes, it will make your life easier and it will make things a little bit more fun in the workshop, but I don't think you absolutely need one. You just got to get creative about how you manage all this stuff. Someone's asking about walrus oil too.
I saw that.
I don't have a lot of experience with walrus oil. To my knowledge,
We have a
their
little
stuff.
can of it in the kitchen.
Yeah, no, they sent me a couple of different things. I've got the can of like the wax mixture. It's like a little tin, which is great for, smells good too. Great for spreading onto kitchen utensils. To my understanding, most of their stuff is a mineral oil base, and then they have other additives that go in there, different types of oils in the mixture that make it whatever their special blend is. But again, it's a good quality product, don't get me wrong, but if you want a mineral oil-based product, that's a good option, a really great option, because they actually have quite a few different variations. They've got a furniture finish. They've got the waxy stuff that I was talking about. The wax is great because like kitchen spoons, that's one of those things that they tend to get beat up the most because they sit in hot water, then they get washed. So having something with a little bit of wax in it is a great way to refresh it, as frequently as you want to keep it looking good and protected. So all this to say, it's a great product, but it is a mineral. Most of the stuff that I've seen of theirs is a mineral oil-based product, and that's not my jam. That's funny, Nicole.
Haha.
Okay, what else we
Eric
got?
Lou.
I just got a pair of prescription safety glasses from Frames Direct. Excellent. Thanks for the great recommendation. I love them. What a difference.
And I want to say thank you to Eric. He hooked Sarah, who I think is in the chat room, up with a project.
Okay.
So she wanted to do the nesting tables. So Eric bought that. So thank you.
Oh, no
Eric.
kidding. Wow. Very generous. I like this. Some folks have been known to build projects in the back of a pickup truck. You are correct, sir.
Yeah.
You are correct. Man, that was the worst. It wasn't so bad. Like, it was fun working in the back of a pickup in the sense of, wow, this is really different.
It was hot.
What was not fun was the heat.
Yeah.
It was the hottest time in Arizona, and we rented that stupid white tent that wasn't big enough to keep us in the shade. And the worst part of it was actually having to film in that environment and have a couple of ding-dongs, no offense to those ding-dongs, but having them like completely over-evaluate and analyze everything that I was doing in terms of like the filming aspects of it. And I'm like, you guys can get out of my space. Get out of here.
Oh, that's funny.
What else we got?
Well, questions and things. Got one here from Old Ohio Angler. I know nothing about it, but will this COPA stuff affect your shows?
No. So the COPPA stuff that people are seeing impacting YouTube, I don't think that's going to affect us. The only time it would affect a channel for the most part is if you are content that's specific for children or content that could be interpreted as being specific for children.
Think of toy unboxings.
Video games, toys, animations, anything along those lines. We have always kind of been two adults. Kids are, free to enjoy what we do, and we do try to keep it family friendly.
Yeah.
But keeping our content family friendly is not necessarily saying it's intended for children. So I don't see our stuff as being in the crosshairs at all for anything like this. We were posed with a decision to mark our content as for kids or not for kids, and we wholeheartedly and had no problem clicking the button that says not for children. It's just not. And kids, if they want to enjoy it, they can, but we are not aiming at children.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a big deal. I don't think this is going to affect any makers for the most
Thanks,
part.
Ryan Toy.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. You big jerk. I just don't know that it's going to affect any of us. I mean,
Because Ryan's toy review is going down.
yeah, I don't know. They'll find a place.
They'll find Nick Jr.
Yeah,
or
they'll
something like
they'll
that,
land on their feet.
you know.
It's the million other wannabe Ryans who are like, no, I have to go to grade school, right?
Yeah.
My meal ticket is gone.
It's so weird.
What if you're a project-oriented channel? There's got to be something like this that either features a kid or is, features an adult who is doing projects that try to, we've talked about this, projects that try to draw kids in. Would that be a channel that would be subject to something like this? Probably.
Yeah.
If you are in any way trying to actively encourage kids to watch it, you're probably going to fall into some tricky areas here.
I know Blippi met with the CEO or something of YouTube. So the big channels are going to be fine. It's the other ones that are trying to break through, break in.
Yeah, who haven't quite gotten to that level yet. It's a tricky thing.
Yeah.
And this, if you guys are any content makers who are watching this, I'm saying that us as makers, I think we're safe, and content creators around building things, I think we're safe from this.
Yeah.
We are not safe from everything else. This is not like YouTube is our buddy. I don't know how many times I've harped on this, that YouTube is a tool that you should use. It should be an arrow in your quiver, and then you should be ready to dispense of that arrow when it's time. YouTube is not our friend. YouTube is in it to take care of their own business. And if we ever don't fit into that paradigm, we're gone. So think bigger than YouTube. Think outside of YouTube. This is just a sort of shot across the bow for people. Look at what's happening to these families. And look, some of them I'm like, good. Sorry, not to be mean, but good. You're totally exploiting children. You're exploiting your own children, and what you do is awful. But some of them are like legitimate good people who are just trying to make good content for kids to watch. And now, their world is turned upside down right now. So it is very scary for some people. So don't let that happen to you later, because some other thing has to occur on YouTube that takes your monetization strategy away.
Well, I have to say, how Patreon came about from ex-YouTube people.
Yeah.
They tried to, okay, well, let's try to help these people create a revenue stream.
Right.
And now YouTube is like, well, we'll take that.
Right. Well, good example, Josh Mann says Tim Sway's son, Vance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, his son, Vance Maker, I believe. Kid does some great stuff, right? But if I know Tim, I don't know that they care too much about Vance monetizing his channel, and I don't know Tim that well. What little I do know of him, he doesn't strike me as a person who's overly concerned about the monetization strategy, and certainly with his son, I can't imagine they're too focused on that. My guess is they'll just continue to make content, market as for kids, and then take whatever monetization dings or inability to share those videos comes with that. I have a feeling he's just more interested in his son accomplishing things and doing cool things online.
Does Vimeo do ads?
I don't think Vimeo has ads, do they?
I don't know.
If they do, I haven't looked at it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have an ad platform.
I mean, because then you start exploring, okay, well, how do we do this outside of YouTube? You have Vimeo, you have, Wistia, you have, different platforms. Anyway. We're getting into not woodworking.
Bigger than YouTube? TikTok Wood Whisper channel coming up.
Oh my God.
Look, I downloaded TikTok.
Oh my God.
I secured my channel. Secured.
Yeah.
So there is a Wood Whisper account there.
Oh my God.
It's going to take a while.
Oh, yes.
It's going to take a while before I think it's worth my time to be in TikTok. And look, here's the thing. Stay out of TikTok, guys. Look, kids ran away from Facebook.
They're running away from
Instagram. Why? Because us old farts are there. Don't ruin it for them. Let these kids have their fun place. Look, when epoxy pouring videos are showing up in TikTok, it's time to go. They're already on to the next thing. You guys are ruining TikTok. Stop it. Let the kids have their fun.
Let the kids have their fun. Let the kids have their TikTok.
Oh, God.
I go in there sometimes and I'm just like, I go down a rabbit hole of like, what am I
go
watching?
in there and I'm like, this is the world we're leaving to our children.
Yeah.
This is horrible. Why?
Now,
why is this happening?
No, that said, there are some really good TikTok channels on there making learning about history fun for kids.
Really?
Yes. And it's kind of neat.
That sounds like my jam.
Well, education based. Though there was one TikTok I saw, the guy showed basically how to cheat with an essay. I was like, yeah, not really.
Oh, I told you this, but one of the channels Mateo watches, we watch it every night. It's called AumSum, AUM, and it's just this little animated character. It's goofy, but it's educational. So they're teaching, various topics, and the little animated characters in the background acting certain things out as the voiceover guy is explaining, diseases or how your body works, things like that. So suddenly, the whole format just changed the other day, and I had to explain to Mateo what happened. That the whole animated character is gone, and now it's just this weird, actually not weird, it's cool. It's an animated display of like a chalkboard, so everything's kind of always shaking a little bit, and it's it's all being drawn.
That was a stinky one.
Sorry, it's all being drawn, and there's no character in it anymore because they don't want to say that it's for kids. Mm-hmm. They're choosing to mark everything as not for children. So that they can have the shareability and stuff like that. And he's not interested anymore. Mm-hmm. And it worked. He doesn't want to watch it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Julius has an interesting question for you.
Julius!
Junior.
Okay. Have you ever been approached to teach a class for not grown yet people? Well, yeah, every class I teach full of adult men is a not grown yet.
He's talking about kids.
Okay. I thought
Middle
it was
school,
about
high
immature
school.
Guys.
No.
I know that, Nicole. I'm kidding. Is there an age range you would consider mature enough to offer training to? Well, honestly, Julius, I don't teach that much in person to begin with. So most of the time, if I'm going to teach, it's going to be your typical class situation with adults. Now that said, if my kids start to show a little bit more of an interest and I see a little more motivation there for me on a personal level to do instruction for children, I would definitely consider doing that. I think there's always some level, if the interest is there, some way to incorporate children into this stuff. And it can be the simplest thing. They don't have to use cutting tools. They could just be assembling wood projects with some glue and then painting the finished product, which we've done.
I think when Mateo gets older and we start, in middle schools when I took shop, I could see the shop teacher, hopefully he has a shop teacher, saying, hey, come on in and talk to the kids.
Yeah. And I think that the thing with kids is every kid is an individual. And I think you really got to look at the kid and decide, because there are some, I don't know, let's just throw an age group out there. There are some 8-year-olds that you would feel comfortable putting a chisel in their hands, and there are some that you absolutely would not feel comfortable putting a chisel in their hands, right? Yeah. Whether it's physical dexterity or just a maturity that you understand they're not just going to take it and jam it into their hand to see what happens. And you got to know the child.
Jam it in the table.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it would be fun to do on a limited level like that, some classes in person with kids. And who knows, there might be something at my son's school or my daughter's school in the future where they bring someone in, I get offered to come in and actually show some things and demo some things. I would do things like that.
I think too, it's probably going to be interesting because most schools are having to deal with these kids going, I want to be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean? What does making content mean? And we could be a good resource for that for the school.
It's such a new age
I know.
that is a thing that people see as viable. It's crazy. But is it viable?
I don't know. It could change.
That's the point, though.
That's the dynamic of it,
Yeah, it's an ever-changing environment. How viable is it?
Yeah. I mean, when we started, I had a business degree and a marketing degree.
When we started, did you lose that since then? The way you said, when we started, I had a business degree, as if you've lost it since then.
Well, in a sense, I didn't take classes to do what we do. I took classes in a lot of different things. So I had computer classes and business classes, and you had a science background.
I did.
So
now I do nothing with it. Did I tell you that Mateo saw my goofy silver YouTube plaque in the office because he watches YouTubers, and he was like, oh,
you have one of those?
Like all of a sudden he realized what we do. And it was just the weirdest moment of admiration from my son.
And then he was like,
in a category that I'm like, don't do that. Like, yeah. Anyways.
We're only 3 years shy of being 1 million.
We'll get there eventually.
Eventually.
I cannot wait.
We're just a slow and steady channel.
This is, I don't really know the answer to this question, but I'm posting it because hopefully someone in the chat might know. Jorge is asking, does the shojiban process do anything to protect wood? If you haven't seen that, that's where they actually torch the wood, and it turns it to this cool charred brown color. And depending on the grain, you might get like lights and darks and things like that. It's an interesting look. I actually, from what I understand, I thought it did do something to protect the wood. The nature of the charring action, I don't know whether it just makes it inhospitable to things that would start to degrade the wood, but I thought that it does impart some kind of protection. But I'm curious to know more about that as well. Shojiban. Yeah, that once it's done and you brush off the soot, that it's like kind of ready to go. But I don't know for sure, so maybe the chat room can tell us a little bit more about that.
Big Willie.
Hold on, Josh said, let me follow that up.
Billy Willie.
So it's relevant. He says, the charred wood repels water and isn't very, I think he might have meant tasty for bugs to eat. So it does become a little less rot prone, maybe?
Big Willie Garage, he says, quick question about the 40% off Black Friday sale. Do you become a lifetime member? Yes. You're a member for life once you buy a project.
Yep.
So if you pick up a project today at 40% off, you get all the full benefits of the guild.
Yeah, you get in the site, and we don't kick you out.
All right. And
Shannon did an episode on shojiban.
Did he?
Sugar ban.
Sugar ban.
So what, on his lumber update podcast, maybe? Or a video? I don't know.
I'm going to put the member benefits link because it shows everything. The guild meetings, which we have a ton of, which Matthew is going back through, and all the ones that don't have show notes, he's getting those for us.
Okay.
So,
bueno.
Going to be easier to search. But yeah, it's pretty awesome.
All right, so we should probably wrap up the show, yeah?
I want to go lay down. Can I go lay down?
Sure, you can go lay down.
Okay. Well,
I don't know what I'm doing with my
I don't know what you're doing, but
I'm
going to say
day.
bye.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody in the U.S.
We do have to pick a guild winner.
Sure. A guild project. Who would you like to pick?
Go back. Jerome?
Jerome
Cornett.
Jerome, if you're still watching, if you're still in the chat, hopefully you didn't have to leave. Email me, nicole@thewoodwhisperer.com, and I will get you set up with a free guild project. Thank you for your question.
Very good. I got one last question I'm going to throw in here. I see from Dark Hanzu. It says, cut up some boards for a panel glue up, but there are some marks left over. Running a plane is all that is needed to ensure a good glue up? I don't have a jointer. Possibly. Put them together, even if they're a little bit jagged on the edges and you got those saw marks on there, put them together. What you're looking for is like major problems. If they meet up pretty well, but the joint just doesn't close perfectly because of those marks, then yes, a nice smoothing plane pass across each one, as long as you're not changing the angle of the edge, should allow that to sync up and come together. If it's a little bit mangled, and if you don't have these edges coming together nicely when you first test them, then it might need a little bit more work than that. But assuming everything is cutting straight and square, you just clean up that edge and then pop those pieces back together and you should be good to go. So also consider, if you're gonna do this, take 2 boards at a time. So if these 2 were gonna go together like this, take those 2, fold them like this, and then plane both at the same time. That'll do 2 things. One, it's going to give you a wider area to plane, so it'll keep your plane a little bit flatter. It's easier not to skew one way or the other. But if you do happen to skew one way or the other, it puts the complementary angle into those pieces. So when you bring them together, even if they're slightly off, they will complement one another and you get a nice closed tight joint. So that's how I would do it.
Before we go, if you didn't happen to see it, Powermatic and Jet are both having a Black Friday sale. I love the model for the Powermatic sale.
That's funny. I did that so long ago.
I know.
They don't really use a lot of that footage much.
If you're wondering what I'm talking about, head on over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/thewoodwhisperer.
Well, isn't it at Powermatic's website?
It's also
too?
on Powermatic's website too. I guess you should probably send them to
Just go to powermatic.com and you'll find it. I think it was in a Rockler ad as well.
Yeah. So I thought you looked cute.
Thanks, hon. Appreciate that. You're forced to. You're married to me.
Not at all.
You have no choice now.
No, I have all the choices.
All the choices are mine. Okay, I'm going to let Retro Weld's comment just stay there for the rest of the show. Okay, well, I think that's really going to wrap it up for us today. Special thanks to Andy for coming in and showing us some of the new products. Remember, 10% off if you use the code MARK. In the Guild today, Black Friday, you've got the Perky Turkey, 40% off any completed in progress or completed project, not pre-orders. 40% off today only, and that's at woodwhispererguild.com. All right, so get on it, people. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving if you're in the U.S. Have a wonderful weekend.
Have a great Friday.
Have a great Friday everywhere else, yeah. And we'll see you next time. Bye. Toodles.